A very good morning to everyone. So today I'll be doing the analysis of the Hindu dated 9th of November. So I've shared the screen of the Hindu with you. Let's begin the analysis. Now the news that is coming on your way, it says that Kerala moves Supreme Court against Governor again. I have done this analysis in my previous days also, so you can go for there for detailed analysis. And again, I'm doing the similar analysis for you. Just a minute. Okay, so what has happened is that Kerala has again moved to the Supreme Court for the second time. Now, this is happening for the second time against the governor. The governor is Arif Mohammed Khan. And the reason is that they are accusing who? The Kerala government for him, or they are accusing him. The Kerala government is accusing the governor, saying that he is trying to defeat the rights of the people. And how is he trying to defeat the rights of the people? They are saying that the governor is trying to sit on the crucial bills. That means the governor is showing no urgency. That means the governor is showing no urgency for what? To discuss the bill and to pass the bill. Rather, he is sitting with the bill, and they are saying that the Kerala government is saying that this is violating the fundamental right of life. Now, how is this happening? Now, if you see, the state represented by advocates said the arbitrary show of lack of urgency by the governor not violated the fundamental right of the people of Kerala. The conduct of the governor in keeping the bills pending. This is what I was saying, that the bills are sitting. The bills are sitting, and there is no urgency to pass the bill. So, for long and indefinite period of time is manifestly arbitrary and also violates the Article 14, that is right to equality of the Constitution. Additionally, it defeats the right of the people of the state of the Kerala under Article 21, that is right to life, of the Constitution by denying them the benefits of the welfare legislation enacted by the State Assembly. Now, what is Kerala submitted, or what kind of document Kerala has submitted? So Kerala has submitted that the first provisions to Article 200. And what is that? Now, this Article 200 talks about the conduct of the governor. That is, when a bill is presented to him for action, so what happens is that it is mandatory for immediate consideration. So the bill that is presented to the governor, it is mandatory for immediate consideration and concern or action. Now, when the bill is presented to the governor for his consideration and action, what is expected from the governor? So, it is expected that he should give his assent to the bill, or either return the bill. So if you give the assent to the bill, then you have to pass the bill. And if you return the bill, then you return a bill with a message. Or you directly refer it to the president. Right? But what is happening is that the article requires, that means this article 200 requires the governor to what? Give his consent for the things, or give or do the or give the immediate action to the bill as soon as possible. So immediate action is required as soon as possible. That is within a reasonable time. But what is governor doing? The governor is unnecessarily prolonging the bill, sitting with the bill, and is not giving what, or is not taking any immediate action. So not taking any immediate action. Fine. So this is what is the news regarding the Kerala and Kerala government, and the issue with the governor of the Kerala. Now let's move on to the next article. Okay, so Kerala forms organic farming mission to boost agriculture. Now, the Kerala government has created an organic farming mission to encourage the adoption of sustainable, organic, and climate smart farming practices in the state. So, why has Kerala moved, or Kerala has created an organic farming? So, as to adopt what? A climate smart farming practice. Now, the mission aims at expanding organic farming to 5,000 hectares in the next 5 years through an annual target of 1,000 hectares. The Agriculture Minister P. Prasad announced the formation of the mission here on Wednesday. The government had formally issued orders related to the mission on October 26. In farms run by Agriculture Department, at least 10% of the area will be set aside for organic farming. That means they have kept how much? 10% of the area separately for organic farm. Now, another mandate of the mission is to make sure that selected beneficiaries farms of organic farming scheme pursue the system at least for 5 years. Now, the mission will take steps to expand the system for certification, branding, and marketing of organic agriculture products from Kerala. An organic farming protocol, which is in synchronous with the protocols prevalent at the national and international levels, will be implemented as part of the activities. Now, the mission will also focus on value addition of the organic products. That means they are talking about that more products will be added on to such kind of, or to the organic farm. Fine. So this was about organic farming in Kerala. Now let's move on to the next news. Okay, so this is an article that is written by Mr. Shashi Tharoor. the third term Lok Sabha member of Parliament. And he's also an award winning author of 25 books, including An Era of Darkness, The British Empire in India, and more recently, The Less You Preach, The More You Learn, Aphorism for Our Age. So, he has talked about an under discussed facet of colonial history. Now, this year marks the bicentenary of the arrival of Tamil indentured laborers in Sri Lanka, a milestone recently commemorated in Colombo at an event called NAM 200, where I delivered an address on this woefully under-discussed facet of our colonial history. I have often said that the history belongs in the past, but understanding it is the duty of present. Now there are still millions of Indians and Sri Lankans alive who remember and lament the depredations of the British Empire in our countries. The United Kingdom may have lapsed into imperial amnesia, but the former colonies cannot. So we ought to remember time and again the forces that made and nearly unmade us. The British Imperial project began as licensed looting in service of the crudest form of capitalism. So he's saying that the British Imperial, the project that began, or you can say he says that it was a licensed looting through capitalism. So one of the imperial or one of the very ambitious project of the British he referred as capitalism. Now Britain avariciously drained its colonies, depriving them of the resources, economic strength and political freedom. That means what British did was, just a minute. See, what is the author saying? That firstly, it is the very ambitious project of the British, that is capitalism. Now, when British started with capitalism, what they did was that they drained the resources of the colonies and they deprived them of their, or the colonies were deprived of their own resources, were deprived of their own economic strength, and were deprived of their own political freedom. Until they were reduced to a state of poverty and desolation. So when all this was happening, it has led to the state of poverty and desolation. And this happened of colonies. Now, in India, they decimated our textile industry, rendering millions unemployed and hundred thousands of Indian farmers into indigenous of felloning their lands for opium cultivation. So, in case of India, the textile industry was ruptured very badly. Agriculture was destroyed. How? Through opium cultivation. Their policies created legions of poor, landless, hungry people in need of work to survive. A new form of bondage came, ironically, as the British went out pillaging India, a wave of liberal humanism wafted through Europe. Slavery at long last came to be considered reprehensible, and the British duly banned it in their colonies. Okay, so slavery was banned. Uh, okay, Christian. Okay, banned, and then it was kind of changed into a name of indentured labor. The economies of most British domains had thus far run on slavery, and the labor crisis that followed abolition led to a soaring demand for workers from India to work on plantation and infrastructure projects. And where were these infrastructure projects? In Caribbean lands, in Fiji Islands, in Reunion Islands, in Natal, Malaysia, Singapore, and Sri Lanka. Press gang indentured labor was the answer. The destitute India's dispatch to these distant lands could scarcely imagine the fates awaiting them, misled as they were about the work they would undertake, the wages they would receive, the quarters where they would dwell, and shockingly, even the countries they are sailing to. That means they were kept aloof of many facts, and these facts were regarding what? The kind of wages they are going to get, the kind of quarters they are going to live in, and the kind or the countries where they were sailing to. Now, having survived a perilous sea voyage, most laborers reached their destination mired in debt, for they had to pay for their own extra-orbitant fare. That means even the laborers, or you can say the indentured laborers, had to pay for their or pay for themselves the fare. As soon as they reached those unfamiliar lands, they were confined to massive plantations and construction sites. Many Tamils arriving in Sri Lanka perished on the arduous trek from coast to central heights. Those who made it were compelled to reside in agonizing squalors with no access to sanitation, running water, medical facilities, or schools for their children. It was not without the reason that the British historian Hugh Tinker called indentured labor a new kind of slavery. So, the same kind of things happened with the people who were considered as indentured labor. Why? Because they were not provided with any of the facilities. Sri Lanka today is a redoubtable producer and exporter of tea, but its first plantation were not of tea but of coffee. So in the 1870s, a rapid spread of fungal disease led to a blight that caused the disappearance of coffee from Sri Lanka plantation, paving the way for the more fecund and profitable crop, whose estates increased manyfold. While coffee requires only 3 workers for every 10 hectare of cultivation, tea requires at least 8. So if you see the number, what they're saying that if there is a coffee plantation happening, you require 3 workers in 10 hectares land. And when it comes to tea, the workers go 8 in the similar kind of land. Now, and as such, demands far more intensive and perennial field labor. This augmented the requirement of workers compounded with the shortfall caused by the abolition of slavery, sparked a massive organized transfer of Indian Tamils to Sri Lanka. Now, of course, the migration of the first Tamils to the island nation far preceded the arrival of plantation Tamils in Ceylon in 19th century. However, what distinguished the plantation Tamils from Tamil migrants of antiquity was the fact that the British denied them even the most basic rights and services. That means these indentured labor, you can say what the name slavery was changed to what? Indentured labor. And when we are discussing about the indentured labor, what is happening is that this indentured laborers were even denied the basic rights and services. So denial of basic rights and services. Okay, now they were subjected to discrimination soon after setting foot in Sri Lanka. Like earlier communities of South Indian origin, plantation Tamils forged a distinct Sri Lankan identity, but colonial practices and policies deemed them foreigners. That means these people going to different land considered as foreigner to those land. Okay. By placing plantation Tamils under the categories of aliens and resident strangers and subsequently calling them Indian Tamils, the colonial state made it arduous for them to assimilate into Sri Lankan society. Independence was no better. The Citizenship Act of 1948 rendered them stateless. Few were paid a fair wage or even ever knew the privacy of their own room. Women tea pluckers toiled all day in the plantations without any toilet facilities. Displacement and de-enfranchisement were their lot. Enfranchisement. Exacerbating their travels, moreover, was the deleterious system of subcontractors called companies. Now, what was happening? See, the labor recruiters and overseers who played a dominant role in the recruitment, management, and exploitation of Indian laborers on plantation once recruited the worker, unwittingly fortified his autonomy to the company who accompanied him on the voyage to the plantation and acted as the intermediary between him and the estate manager once he began working on the stakes. Unlike indentured labor, workers who were technically entitled to demand passage home after the end of the indentured period, the plantation Tamils had no deliverance from the horror of the Kangni system. Now, I'll just tell you what is the Kangni system. Their contracts with the companies were vague, allowing for their greater abuse at the hands of the recruiter, who, being someone they knew, would often persuade them to borrow money, plunging them in debt they could never afford to pay off. Nor could the plantation Tamils buy land and build houses for colonial laws, restricted land holding to those domiciled in Ceylon, which the British planters and officers construed as excluding them. Now, what else happened? So, see, and uh, an identity and a journey of integration. Now, how come the identity of journey and integration went ahead? So, see, how did the things went by and how come all the things led to this kind of indentured labor where the rights of the labor were taken by. So see how the things were going about. There was a system, and what was that system? System was of subcontractors called companies. So I'm explaining you about the company system. This. Now, what was the company system? So, this was a system. Now, what kind of system? Now, there was a system called a system of subcontractors called. There was a system of subcontractors, and these subcontractors were called companies. And what they used to do was that labor recruiters and overseas who played a dominant role in the recruitment. Now, these subcontractors were playing a dominant role in what recruitment, management, and exploitation. Now, once recruited, the workers fortified his autonomy to the company. That means the worker has kind of given what his autonomy to the company. And now, what he's going to do is he is going to accompany this company wherever the company is going. That means wherever the subcontractor is going. So, right from the voyage to plantation, and everywhere he is or he or she is kind of going to accompany him. Apart from this, what is happening is when the person or when this worker is going with the company, he is also going to be what? He is also going to act as an intermediary between the company and the estate. Estate manager is the one who is having the estate, and the worker is working for the estate. Now, when this worker is working for the estate, he is recruited by the company. He's acting as an intermediary between the company and the estate manager. What is happening is the worker is defied the right, and what is that right? To buy land and build houses. Fine. Okay. Now what else? And plantation. Now, the plantation Tamils found the local condition in Sri Lanka conducive for the creation of an identity anchored in Tamil linguistic and literary traditions and Tamil values and ideals. Now, they identified themselves more with who they were linguistically and regionally than with a pan Indian nationality or religion. Over a span of several generations, though, they strove towards greater integration with the mainstream of Sri Lanka society, encountering several man-made obstacles such as Citizenship Act of 1948, which rendered them stateless in the process. Now, with commendable fortitude, the plantation Tamil grappled with the challenges besetting them, carving a place for themselves in Sri Lankan society. Now, thanks to the efforts of the democratic parties such as the Ceylon Workers Congress, they are now all citizens with the democratic right to vote. And the government speaks of dividing the plantation so as to make the workers the owner of the land, and they work on a project still in planning stage but with immense potential. So, in reaffirming their identity as the descendants of those who were dispatched to Sri Lanka from India, those workers, those intentional laborers who were dispatched to Sri Lanka from India, they have reclaimed their heritage as the plantation Tamils. That means all those who were coming from India, or all those who went from India to Tamil, they were referred as who? The plantation Tamils, who are also equal and prominent citizens of Sri Lanka. There has been valorous subaltern struggle for equality and self-determination, and merely thinking of it fills me with admiration. It is important that post-colonial countries take effective steps to decolonize themselves from the practices, laws, and attitudes of our imperial masters. So, Mr. Tharoor is of the opinion that it's very important that we have walked out from a colonial period, and when we have walked out from this colonial period, what is required to be done is that we require effective steps to decolonize ourselves. Why? Because somewhere or other those Britishers have left, but by all defaults, we are governed by the laws that they have made for us. So it is. So the author is of the opinion that what you need to do is that you need to decolonize yourself from the practices, laws, and attitudes of your imperial masters. Too often, post colonial nations adopt the same tool introduced by the colonizers to continue the practices of systematic oppression. Sometimes there is little difference between the two systems, only the skin color and the names of the rulers change. That means the author is of the opinion that there, even though you are living in a period of independence, but somewhere or other, there is a very little difference between the two systems. That means the system that existed during the colonial period and the system in which you are presently living. It is just the fact that the skin color and the names of the rulers have changed. That means there are high chances that the kind of independent country where you are living in and you are having these new rulers, these two are operating operating with that kind of mindset which the colonies or the colonial or the imperial masters were operating with. So it's just the fact that the color of the skin has changed. That means the rulers precisely are from our time, or you can say from our nation, but the practice is the similar one. So you need to have a check on, you need to keep a look over it. Now, as Sri Lanka looks forward to economic and social revival and the integration of all its communities, decolonization must be at the heart of it. Forging a post-colonial inclusive identity for all its people remain the unfulfilled task of nation building in Sri Lanka. So, indeed, what is said by the author is that even though we have, or the Tamil or the Sri Lanka has, or we have came to a post-colonial period, but we are still governed by the laws and rules that were made by them. So what you need to do is, so what you need to do is you need to, or Sri Lanka need to look forward to economic and social revival and integration of all its communities. Decolonization must be in the heart of it. That means first, okay, so first what you need to do is decolonization should be there, and you, that means Sri Lanka need to take the measure of inclusive identity. Fine, let's move on to the next article. Okay, the article says that move towards e-FIR but with caution. Now, the Law Commission of India, now move towards e-FIR but with caution. The Law Commission of India in report number 282 recommended that in cases where the accused is not known, registration of an e-FIR should be allowed for all cognizable offences. If the accused is known as a if the accused is known as a preliminary step, registration of an e-FIR may be allowed for cognizable offence, whereas the punishment provided under IPC and other law is up to 3 years. Now, since here is the term, what is known as cognizable offence, so let's first discuss what is the cognizable offence, why, what is referred as to this, what do we understand by such kind of offense, etc. Now, see, firstly, you should know about cognizable offense. Now, when I talk about cognizable offense, now these are those kind of offenses these are considered as serious offense. And under this offense, the accused is going to do what? The accused can be arrested without offense. So you need to remember that whenever it's about cognizable offense, without warrant. So it's considered as a serious offense, and the accused can be arrested without the warrant. And at the same time, what here what you find is, or in this kind of offense, what you find is that there is, or this is considered as a bailable offense. Now, see what is happening is that you have two kind of offenses. One is your cognizable offense, the other one is your non-cognizable offense. Now, when it comes to non-cognizable offense, now in this kind of offense, what you find is it is considered to be as offense, the non-cognizable offense, where the police requires to have a warrant. That means in cognizable offense, the offense becomes a serious one. So the arrest can be taken place without warrant. And when it comes to non-cognizable offense, that means a police has to require a warrant, and without warrant, the arrest shouldn't take place. Now, when there is an FIR that is being launched based on the offense, it could be said whether it is a serious one or it is a non-serious one. Now, the verification of the complaint, the commission said could be done by verifying the mobile number through an OTP and mandating the uploading of valid ID proof such as Aadhaar. So it is also said that the name of the suspect on the centralized national portal is to be secured until the e-FIR is signed by the complainant. Further, in case the registered information is not signed by the informant deliberately within the prescribed time, the information shall be deleted within 2 weeks. Now, what is an e-FIR? Or how is this e-FIR going to work? Now, see, what is happening is the Commission has not demystified the concept of an e-FIR. The procedure laid down in the report says that the police station will check the contents of the information received from the portal to verify whether a cognizable offence is made out as recommended. Only then will the received information be entered in the prescribed format within 3 days. Now, in other cases, punishable with more than 3 years of imprisonment, the conventional method prescribed under IPC need to be followed. In the next step, what is going to happen? The police officer is required to get the signature of the complainant within 3 days to register an e-FIR. Otherwise, the e-FIR shall not be registered. Reason shall be communicated and the said information shall be automatically deleted after 2 weeks from the portal. The procedure is given only for cases where the accused is known. That means in case if the accused is known, the process will not be followed. Though the Commission mentioned that the 8 states are lodging an e-FIR, it did not discuss any of the models adopted by those states, particularly the methods of obtaining signatures. It is thus clear that the concept of an e-FIR is nothing but obtaining information complaint through electronic means using a common national portal and then getting the information complaint signed by the complainant physically within 3 days to convert the complaint into an actual FIR. It is obvious that e-FIR is not an automatically registered FIR using electronic means, including electronic signature of the complainant. The online facility will have only limited efficacy. Also, any investigation done prior to the actual registration of the FIR shall not be an investigation undertaken in the true spirit of the CRPC. So, if I have to say, what is an e-FIR? e-FIR is considered to be a medium from, or you can say, an electronic mirror through which information or complaint could be complaint could be registered, and in that case, what is going to happen? Once the complaint is registered through this electronic measure, this need to be signed by the actual complainant within 3 days to convert this complaint or to convert this information into an actual FIR. Now, the point is that if you are going to convert this information or the complaint into actual FIR, what shall be the benefit of this? First, the police will have to do what? Now, the benefits shall lie in the thing that the first the police will have to take cognizance of the complaint as the system will automatically what generate the receipt, and this will be or this how shall this receipt be coming from? So, see. Here they are saying that the online facility will have only limited efficacy. Also, an investigation done prior to the actual registration of the FIR shall not be an investigation undertaken in the true spirit of the CRPC. That means one information that has been done or the investigation of the information will be done. And this investigation of information will be done whether FIR is correct one or not. So in order to see whether it's an actual FIR or not. And after that, once the actual FIR is registered, what is going to happen? Now the investigating or investigation of the case will happen under CRPC. Fine. Okay. Now, still there are at least two benefits of obtaining complaints electronically. First, the police will have to take cognizance of the complaint as the system will automatically generate receipt. This will ensure almost free registration of crime. Second, they will not be able to change the contents of the complaint. And that means, firstly, they'll get the receipt once they have registered the complaint. Secondly, no change in the content is allowed. While most of the 8 states are registering FIRs using the crime and criminal tracking network and systems or state portals, mostly in property offense where the accused is unknown. That means, when the FIRs, they were registering FIRs using this crime tracking network and systems of the state portal. What they found was that mostly in the property offense, there were the accused was unknown. The Law Commission has recommended e-FIR for all cognizable offences where the accused is not known without discussing other related aspects. For example, the accused may initially be unknown in a case of kidnapping, where not only immediate medical examination of the victim may be important, but also timely visit of the scene of the crime is important. Now, in fact, interaction with the police officer is valuable in solving blind crimes. Now, what is going to happen? Though the option to approach the police station for reporting the cognizable offense shall always be open, the legally permissible period of 3 days may give a false impression to a common man that will not affect his case in that way. The complainant may not understand the nuisance of a crime. Therefore, only cases where human interactions can be postponed for a limited period without having an adverse impact on the case may be permitted to be registered electronically. Now, e-authentication technique. The Commission has also not discussed using the e-authentication technique or a digital signature as defined in the Information or IT Act 2000. For signing complaints under the Act, any information that is rendered or made available in an electronic form and accessible so as to be usable for a subsequent reference is legally acceptable. Similarly, any electronic record can be authenticated by such electronic signature or electronic authentication technique which is considered reliable. Thus, one can imply that in case a paper-based signed complaint is to be replaced by an equivalent document in electronic form, one must affix electronic signature or use e-authentication technique notified by the government in the second schedule of the IT Act. That means, what is going to happen, that the paper-based signed complaint is to be replaced by an equivalent document, that is electronic form. One must affix electronic signature. So you are signing the paper officially. That could also be done through e-signature. But you see, all in all, what is happening is that even today, there's a deepfake technology which is appearing so vividly. What you find is that, let's see how this is going to operate, because bringing e-FIR is good, is convenient. But the point is that, with so much technology into our pocket, is it going to work smoothly, or is it going to create more chaos in the workspace? So in 2015, a e-authentication technique using Aadhaar e-KYC services was notified in the second schedule as a legally recognized technique. Now, this is widely used by the Income Tax Department to facilitate filling of returns electronically. The law also recognizes what digital signature, which uses an asymmetric crypto system and hash function. Without affixing digital signature or using e-authentication technique, an electronic record transmitted to the police would legally be considered not more than an unsigned complaint. That means, if you or if the complainant is just providing electronic record, what is going to happen is that would be considered an unsigned complaint. Therefore, it would be better if the use of e-authentication technique is mandated for the verification of complainant and e-FIR is registered immediately. That means when the e-FIR is registered, what is required is e-authentication techniques is mandatory. Why? For verification of complaining. The one who is filing the complaint, because there are many high chances that if the complaint file could be bogus. So for that you require what? Verification. Fine. Now let's move on to the next news analysis. Importance of loss and damage funds. Now, when was the decision to establish a loss and damage fund taken? In which the conference of parties did member states take concrete steps to bring this fund to fruition? Now, as the climate crisis intensifies, two terms are in sharp focus, that is adaptation and the loss and damage. Adaptation is a proactive response to climate change, the art of survival by which communities, countries make deliberate choices to prepare for and cope with climate-related challenges. In contrast, the loss and damage represents the irreversible consequences of climate change. Now, the point is, what is loss and damage fund? The call for affluent nations to acknowledge their accountability for historic pollution is more than 30 years old. Historic pollution has elevated the world's average surface temperature by more than 1 degree Celsius and is currently inflicting damage worldwide, but especially in the poorest nations. At the 19th Conference of Parties to the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, uh, representatives of member countries formally agreed to establish the loss and damage fund. And when did they agree? They agreed at the COP of UNFCCC. It was being created to provide financial and technical assistance to economically developing nations where that were incurring loss and damage due to climate change. So, loss and damage fund. Why? Because there was loss and damage that was incurred due to climate change. At COP25, the San Diego network for loss and damage was set up, but the countries didn't commit any funds. Dialogues on finance for loss and damage was established to continue discussion. Finally, at COP27, after intense negotiation, representatives of UNFCCC members states agreed to set up loss and damage fund and a transitional committee to figure out how the new funding mechanism under the fund would operate. Now, what has caused the transitional committee meeting to cause this impasse? So, the fourth meeting of this, what are the principal goals of contention? Firstly, they had to do with the hosting of funds at the World Bank, the foundation principle of common but differentiated responsibility, climate preparation. The differences on these count deepen the rift between the developed and developing nations at the transitional committee. Four, and impromptu in the meeting, what was there? A set of recommendations have been drafted. Now, in this TC5, that is your Transitional Committee fifth meeting, developing nations conceded to the fund being hosted by the World Bank Financial Intermediary Fund for an interim period of 4 years that serves by a new dedicated and independent secretariats. Moreover, the developed nations, particularly the US, have remained not committal about being primary donor. Now, the result is that their support is voluntary. This has watered down the spirit and intent of the loss and damage fund. Now, further, there is currently no indication of the size of the fund because such a statement was quashed under pressure from UK and Australia. The current draft simply urges and invites developed nations to provide money. Now, what are the implications of this outcome? The Transitional Committee files outcome highlights a profound lack of trust between affluent and emerging economies. That means, firstly, the issue is that there is lack of faith between the affluent countries and the emerging economies, or you can say the developing economies. Then there is a substantial divide between wealthy and impoverished nations, particularly concerning climate reparation. So when climate factor comes, there is a huge divide between who? Between the wealthy one and between the wealthy countries and the impoverished nations. The unwillingness of wealthy nations to fulfill intended commitments undermines the faith in global climate negotiations. It represents a missed chance to take concrete steps forward to combat the escalating consequence of climate change on vulnerable communities and signifies a breakdown in diplomatic efforts, leading to doubt about nations' ability to collaborate effectively. The discontent among developing nations stems from the perception that their concerns and needs are not adequately addressed by the international community, making the path to climate action and indeed other global issues even more complicated. That means the vulnerable communities, or you can say the countries, find themselves where that their path to climate action remains complicated. Now, beyond the immediate diplomatic and trust-related repercussions, the washing down of loss and damage fund has wide-reaching implications. It threatens climate justice, the suffering of vulnerable communities. Communities have contributed minimally to global emissions. Watering down can also increase the number of humanitarian crises via food shortage, people displacement, conflict, host communities, etc. The absence of the support has just a minute. Okay, sorry. The absence of support has economic consequences for both developing and developed nations. Financial crisis, economic downturns in one region can have extensive repercussions. Now, without adequate loss and damage funds, there will also be limited capacity to address environmental degradation. Finally, climate change induced instability can have security implications as well. Now, how will loss and damage fund ensure climate justice? They exist on continuum of climate resilience and both have place in our collective efforts. So this will lead to what? Building the climate resilience. A successful response to climate change requires us to balance proactive measures of adaptation with more and financial responsibility of addressing the losses and damage that are inescapable part of climate altered worlds. The Loss and Damage Fund was conceived as a critical component of global climate action. So, to achieve climate justice, rich countries must meet their obligations to reduce emissions, deliver finance with in line with what is fair, and thus uphold the principle of equity, justice, and solidarity in the face of climate change. Otherwise, global climate action will get derailed, putting more pressure on the already beleaguered COP28 talks later this month. So, what you need to do over here is that if you see the map, you'll find the expensive disasters at the past. Here, you find the disaster happening in the regions of Colombia. Then you find the regions of Florida. You find the regions of California. You find the regions of New York. Here you find the regions of Europe. You find the regions of Germany. You find the regions of Pakistan. You find the regions of Japan. Here you find the regions of Australia. So the impact is very harsh, and in order to mitigate them, what is required is that there need to be climate negotiations that need to take place. Fine. And because of this, this shall lead to what? Global climate change. Okay. So this much for today. Thank you so much. I shall see you tomorrow. Thank you.